Hey everybody, it's Sunday, July 10th, 2022. And I really hadn't planned on anything. I just saw something this morning. I got my coffee. I'm drinking it. I'm reading the news. And this Alexandra Petrie, a columnist for Washington Post. Sorry, Brett Kavanaugh, but the Constitution contains no right to eat dinner. Apparently, Morton's, a steakhouse over in the D.C. area, frowned at protesters that gathered outside while Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh ate there. They're booing and shaming him and all this other crap, obviously over the Roe v. Wade thing, which is Roe v. Wade overturning, which completely took me back to 2018, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen, who got jeered at a Mexican restaurant in the Metro DC area, Cocina Mexicana. She's the lady that led the zero tolerance policy under the Trump administration that separated migrant families once apprehended at the border. She was one of those that led that portion of the policy. You know, taking kids away from their moms, taking kids away from their parents. You know, after authorizing all of that stuff, she went to a Mexican restaurant of all places, and that's what got and I guess she just didn't count on it. But all these people that were so upset with her went outside that restaurant and booed her and jeered her, and more than likely gave her the bird and all this stuff to where she couldn't eat in peace. 4 years later, Kavanaugh goes to this steakhouse, and the same thing happens. He's going in there feeling all proud of himself, and everybody just boos him. And the owner of the steakhouse told the reports, "This is disgusting. Those people need to be ashamed of themselves, and this is BS." No differently than Cocina Mexicana. The owner there frowned at the protesters for causing such angst outside of his restaurant, on the sidewalk outside of the restaurant, while they're looking in through the windows at that Secretary of Homeland Security, Nielsen. She's trying to eat in peace, and they're not letting her. Now we're going to be hearing a bunch of bullcrap from all of the right wing conservatives, and I'm going to point out right now, neither of which were as dangerous as the 2020 plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer by the far-right extremists Wolverine Watchmen, an offshoot of the Michigan militia, okay, over mask mandates. Or is somebody, hey, I want you all to stay alive and healthy, and I want you to protect yourselves. Put on the masks. And they were ready to kidnap and kill her. Okay? That was not the protesters for human rights. That was these douchebags that didn't want to wear masks during a pandemic. Neither restaurant protests, whether it be back in 2018 or just recently in 2022, were as deadly as the George Floyd civil rights protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, August 25th, 2020. Kyle Rittenhouse, an 18-year-old at the time, traveled all the way from Illinois to cause and stir up trouble, which allowed him to legally shoot the aggressors that he aggravated in the name of self-defense. This kid went to an area who he has no residence in, out of the state that he lives in, to go cause trouble to some civil rights protesters who are just getting tired of being killed by cops. He picked a fight, and when he was getting his ass kicked, this photo shows him on the ground shooting up at people. When he was getting his ass kicked like the bitch ass punk that he was, he turned around and shot them and then got a walk in the name of self-defense. Okay? That punk playout was nowhere near as deadly. I mean, it was way more deadly than the restaurant protests. So for everybody that's going to be commenting the rest of this weekend into the next week, how the protesters that that jeered at Brett Kavanaugh just recently are domestic terrorists, and it's all part of left-wing liberal conspiracies and liberal threats and genocide and mass chaos, and dogs with cats and everything. Okay, let's remember those restaurant protests, whether it be as far back as 2018 or currently, were nowhere near as dangerous as the far-right extremists who tried to kidnap a governor, and nowhere near as deadly as some brainwashed 18-year-old doofus punk kid that goes to intentionally across state lines to pick a fight with someone and then kill them in the name of self-defense. Okay? Now I'm still upset about that, sure. And I'm hoping that the law will smarten up and not let that kind of punk thing happen again, because it's legal. It's being legally a punk to our system, to the American system, to the American justice system, to top it all off. It's just, and then of course the insurrection. None of those restaurant protests were as dangerous or as deadly as the insurrection. As long as we're still talking about the far right, whatchamacallits. And everybody will still call those protesters domestic terrorists and all this crap. Well, let's just be honest. They were frowned at by the restaurant owners. They weren't shot at. The protesters didn't shoot the restaurant owners. They didn't pick a fight with anybody there. The protesters didn't destroy anything at those restaurants. They didn't bust any windows and break in and started looting and stuff. Excuse me, sorry. I forgot this is YouTube. They didn't protest and all that good. They didn't break in and enter the restaurant. There was no hot sauce and tortillas taken from that Mexican restaurant 4 years ago, and there was no steak sauce and potato sides, baked potatoes stolen. There was no poultry or steaks stolen out of that restaurant in this year, 4 years later. Nobody stole the silverware. Nobody got shanked or stabbed by the silverware that they stole from, that they picked off the tables. And no protester came up with guns ready to kill somebody in the name of defense. There was no duct tape at either one of those restaurant protests. No zip ties at either one of those protests. There was nobody with homemade American spears, American flag spears at those restaurant protests. No. They were protests for civil rights 4 years ago, human rights 4 years ago, and women's rights in this year, 4 years later. That's what took place. That's what took place. So you're gonna hear a lot of crap from, shock talk to just those that are plain ignorant, if not actually controversial talk in the name of a belief, like in the name of their white race, like that Nick Fuentes doofus, the American Foundation, or anybody from the American Foundation, or American Front, I'm sorry. Actually, both, I think. You know. Anyway, those speakers are going to be saying all these wild antics about the protesters. Again, one that's just wanting women's rights to choose. No differently than a civil rights matter, no differently than the civil rights of 4 years ago of separation of families at the border. We didn't need to do any of that. America maintained, and still, if you just let the immigration and border patrol and border agencies get organized, you know, America could handle it. America could have handled it. It's not hard for us. As stated through many of my earlier posts, all the back talk that I'm giving in comparison to what all of the wild accusations of haters and extremists from people in militias all the way up to the politicians that collect their donations. Yeah, we could have actually handled this by now. Technically, the American agencies already are. Because I don't know if y'all remember that busing the governor, my Texas governor, who bussed migrants to D.C. and said, because Biden's not doing his job. Technically, he did. His administration did. All those that were bussed over to D.C. were already vetted in. They were in the facilities this entire time, from as far back as 2018 to 2020. They were processed, background checked, tested with immunizations and later on vaccination shots, and they had background checks and mental checks on them, and they passed. It took 4 to 6 years. No, excuse me, 2 to 4 years. My apologies. From 2020 to as far back as 2018. So it took 2 to 4 years. But nevertheless, those migrants got vetted in. And that's how our American policies and programs work. And if people like Greg Abbott had just not gotten away, if people like Justice Kavanaugh had not interfered, if people like Kirstjen Nielsen had not interfered with their stupid policies and overturnings, we would still be maintaining. And that's the thing that I want to bring up, despite the fact that, you know, the wild, wacky media from both sides are going to be talking about this. You know, the far-right conservatives are making these wild accusations about protesters being domestic terrorists, not letting Kavanaugh have his steak, not letting Kavanaugh eat a steak dinner. Just like 4 years ago, not letting Kirstjen Nielsen, mouth herself with a burrito. Or whatever it was that she was eating. Putting a big old burrito in her mouth. Shame on those protesters. You know, this is the thing that I'm trying to point out. There's going to be wild accusations coming up soon, either at the end of this weekend or in the beginning of next week. And it's all going to be nothing but opinionated bullcrap. And I know that's strange, I know that's strange coming from a guy, Chris's Comments, an opinionating commenter. But there's a difference between me and those extremists. I'm looking at the facts. I didn't make up those protests that came up, or the details to them. I didn't make up the stuff that took place with the far-right conservative extremists, or the details that entailed them being far-right extremists. You know, that's the media, that's the news, those are the facts. It's everyone else that says peaceful protests, oh no, they're terrorists. You know, it's everyone else that's saying conservative extremists. No, they're freedom fighters. Okay, I'm not saying any of those things. I'm pointing out what happened, who those people were, and the outcome. And then I'm making a prediction with this whole get ready thing. That's Chris's predictions. What's going to happen is a bunch of BS, wild accusations, and then debates and talks and all this other stuff. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to your head, or don't let it bother you. It's, in fact, entertain it. Enjoy the entertainment of it, because the facts are far more fun than any of these wild accusations and stuff. And it's because of those facts that these wild accusations come from. It's all that roaring and rousing and just plain over dramatic BS that's going on because of the facts, whether they can face it or not. Again, it was a peaceful protest. Nobody was getting killed. Nobody was getting shot. There was no hot sauce being stolen. There was no steak sauce being stolen. Y'all take care. That's pretty much what I wanted to bring up after reading this article. Sorry, no, there's no constitution right to eat dinner at a restaurant. So I thought that was funny, and I thought I'd like to share that with y'all. And y'all take care. Keep taking care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe out there. This is Chris with Chris's Comments, signing out.